Now with the yeehaw. How would you like to learn from Reverend Doug Craig? See, I'm choking up over him. He's so good. But he's not going to talk about just anything. He is going to come up here and explain hell on wheels. Come on up.
Actually, it's hell in the hallways. Yeah, we'll do the wheels another time. We don't want to get into that today, Therese. Woo-hoo. Good morning. How's everybody this wonderful morning? Hey, you know, they're talking about that's a small world thing, and there I was tailgating at the football game the other day. It was Indigenous night, and this Indigenous gentleman, younger fella, comes up and starts talking to me and introduces himself and knows a half a dozen people I know, I know half a dozen people he knows my family, so I know his. How about that? Out of just somebody random in the middle of a tailgate you never seen before, just kind of bumped in and started talking. It's a small world. And always remember that, so you got to be careful what you say and who you say it to, because you never know when it'll come back around. Anyhow, before I get started, Reverend Tim Peterson in Metro Edmonton Center for Spiritual Living is not yesterday, but 2 weeks from yesterday. It'll be a week and a Saturday, and first Saturday in October is having his 20th anniversary celebration. So if anybody's interested, he's having a do and a dance there and a couple of speakers and stuff like that if you're interested. Tim had 4 years in the other center in Edmonton and 7 years in Winnipeg. So this is 31 years, and of course he got his start right here. And he was the first student that went out and really kicked some serious butt, so it was kind of interesting. So if you're interested, that's fine, and if not, maybe you'll catch him when he's down and I'm down and a few other people on November 9th. Keep tuned, more coming. We like that. Okay, well, hell in the hallways is an interesting topic. So I'm going to set this up and we'll do a little bit of an opening, but basically it's the old story. Anybody ever heard that? You know, whenever God closes one door, God always opens another door. Has anybody ever heard that before? Yeah? One door opens another door. But nobody talks about hell in the hallways. What happens in that transition when that door's getting closed and this one's getting open? What happens in between? Does anybody ever talk about that? That's what I'm going to talk about today. Of course, the opening and the closing part, but we'll talk about the hell in the hallways. So to begin, I'll invite you just to get comfortable, and let's just go within and get focused and centered and clear. And I invite you, if you'd like, to close your eyes and just get relaxed and center your mind and your emotion and everything you have at the point of power in your life, which is always in the present moment, and know that right here and right now, as we open our minds, we come to know that there is one eternal source that is in everything, through everything, everywhere present, circumference nowhere, center everywhere. And so we call this power many names. Today I choose to call it God. And I know that I am, you are, we all are a unique, individualized expression of the Most High. And I come to know and accept that the only constant in my life is change. Change is constantly going on and constantly happening. And I know that there's a process, and I am open and receptive right here and right now to gaining a deeper awareness, a deeper understanding of managing and understanding this process called change. So know that we are all going to change into something. We just don't know what that is. But we have the power and the presence to set the guidelines for what it is that we want to turn ourselves into. So just take a moment of silence and without any conditions, limitations, or anything, see yourself living your dream. What is it that you as an individual would really, really like to do? Yeah, you might want a vacation and all that stuff, but I mean for the rest of your time here. What would you like to do, and how would you like to experience your time? And you might not know, but put that in there and be open and receptive to seeing it if you do know and believing it. So I know and declare for myself and each one here that there is a willingness for us to release and let go of all that stands in the way of what it is that we desire to experience. That's the highest and best for us and brings only good to all those concerned around us. Know that that possibility exists in mind because we've envisioned it or declared it, and that what our job is to be able to step forward for what we know into that experience and just release any resistance, any negativity, any doubts, and just be willing to work with the process, to work with the Spirit, and to work with the law. And ultimately, at the end of the day, only good prevails because of what we're doing and our integrity and intention. So we move forward, knowing now that something wonderful is here for us today, and we're open and receptive to receiving it. And we give thanks and know it is so, and so it is. Change. You see, that's one of the things that people have a hard time dealing with is change. But it's always happening. And you know, it's really quite simple. The process is really simple. If you're going to move into something new, that means you've got to release something old because you have to make time and space in your life and in your heart and in your mind to be able to do that. So life is about a series of hours about letting go and stepping forward, embracing the new. Has anybody ever tried to let go of a bad habit before here? Anybody? And had a problem with it? Why is it so hard to let go of if we really want to do it and get rid of it? Have you ever wondered that? Even though it's what we want to do, it's hard. And then we got this wonderful thing that we want to do, but it's hard too because we're afraid. What if it don't work? What if we fail? And then we want guarantees from God. Well, just give me a little money or this, that, and then I'll know for sure it's time to do it. Anybody go through all those questions? You see, and they're all really lies that we tell ourselves just to get ourselves confused and to not really get started on what we need to do. So, I'm going to talk about this. Nice quote here. I like this one. Every new beginning comes from another beginning's end. Okay? Because life is a series of beginnings and endings. You got to get that because it's going to happen whether you like it or not. You're going to change into something, but you don't know what you're going to change into, do you? I never changed into anything that I thought I was going to change into. It was all different. I never had a vision of anything that I've done or did in my entire lifetime before it happened. So don't think you have to know what it is. You just have to be open and receptive and get started. If you got a dream and a desire, one of the great dreams of everybody is just to do stuff that you love to do and not do anything else and make a living at it. Well, that's exactly what I do. Everything I do, all my different character roles, I make money at and I have a good time, and it's just wonderful. But it didn't start that way. Okay, remember that. You got to plant the gems along the way, plant the seeds along the way, and as you mature and garner your wisdom along the way and work with it, then you begin to reap the gems that you planted along the way. Okay, that's the way it works, sowing and reaping. It's a continual process. Heraclitus said the only thing that's constant is change. Plato says everything changes, nothing stands still. You cannot step twice into the same river. Oh, it's the same name, it flows the same way, but it's never the same river when you step into it, because what you step into is God. What you step into now is the new river. So, and if you don't understand that, has anybody noticed any changes in your bodies as you go along? Some of you younger people will notice this a little bit more as you go along. There are things that happen I could never imagine, and I only heard old people talk about it. It horrified me, but they were right. Yeah. It was a lot easier being 20 in the 70s than it is being 70 in the 20s. I got to tell you. Okay, so let's look at a door closes. Okay, leave it behind. That's okay. I don't want it anymore. Even going out, cleaning the closets and cleaning the house and getting rid of all that stuff that you've packed away there for 25 years, but you might need it someday. And someday, you're right, somebody's going to need it to take it, get rid of it at the dump. I hate to tell you that, but it's true. Anybody gone to the dump with that kind of things from somebody before? We'll leave it like that. So, what are one of the keys about closing the door? One thing when you're moving forward, you have to be prepared to let the past go. If you're bold enough, you could be prepared to let it all go, everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because you see, if you could get to that position, whatever you get to carry forward with is always the good stuff, or the stuff you just can't let go of yet, you know. I had one of those things, resentments against two people, and I know you're not supposed to have those, but I carried those for, 20, 25, 30 years. And just a couple of years ago, I finally decided I had to let go of that for those two. And it was really difficult, but I did. And you know how you know you've let go of something like that, a person, is when they cross your mind and you don't have any feelings. You're neutral. Oh, maybe you love them. They tell you you should. Maybe you like them. They tell you you should at least do that. Truth is, you don't have to do either one. You just got to be neutral. Okay? If you could love them and like them, hurrah. But if you can't do it honestly, don't bother. But make sure when they cross your mind, you have no feeling whatsoever. It's just like reading something in the newspaper. It's just somebody else, not your life. Okay? You got to get to that point. Forgiveness is the key thing in letting go. You never let go of any bad habits or anything unless you forgive. And we're talking a lot about people, and you know, people are pretty easy. Oh yeah, if you work at it, they're pretty easy. It can be done. The tough one is the one looking back at you in the mirror. Try forgiving that person. Anybody ever did any crappy things this morning before you come and got down on yourself for being a little dumb, or how could you make such a mistake? Or has that happened to anybody this morning yet? Yeah, well, guess what? If it hasn't, then you're really not thinking about it and just trying to avoid what I'm saying. Okay? Okay, well, you got to call it like it is, eh? So, yeah, and you know, the person in the mirror is the greatest person that you've got on your side. Because, you know, it really doesn't matter a damn thing what anybody else thinks about you. Not a thing. Because, you know, nobody else is in here except you. You're the one that runs this. So if you've got someone you resent or don't like, or you're concerned about what they think about you, if you want to rent space in your head for them, put up a for rent sign and give them, I'll give you an hour a day where I'm going to be pissed off and upset and everything about that, and I'm going to hold it in grudge and hate you for an hour a day and waste that productive time I could be doing something else with. Now you say, well, that's ridiculous. Who would do that? Well, we do it, you see. We just don't do it like that. And that's how ridiculous it is for us to do stuff like that. Especially when we're looking at the person that's on our side. Us. Because really nobody else is on your side. They aren't. It doesn't really matter whether they are or not. Unless you're on your side, it doesn't matter how many people are there for you. And if you're not in your side, you could be darn sure there's going to be a bunch of people there to tell you why you're right about being that way. True? So we got to get there. That's the real key of letting go. All the other stuff is letting go of smoking, overeating, drinking. All of that stuff is incidental. If you can get rid of why you don't like yourself, then that means you're going to have to be liking yourself. And then when you like yourself, it's easier not to do dumb things like that. Just ask me, I know. Both ways, by the way. Ann Landers said, some people believe holding on and hanging in there are signs of great strength. However, there are times when it takes much more strength to know when to let go and then to do it. Okay, you want the zinger today? Here's the zinger. It's called letting go of toxicity in your life. That means habits and more people. Toxic people we may be toxic in somebody else's life. They can't stand us being so damn positive, you know, and they consider us toxic. But that's, you know, toxic is a judgment. But toxicity is something that we entertain with a lot of people in hopes, and they're not willing to change, so we need to change our relationship to them. And what I do, by the way, whether you like it or not, this is it. I have a border and a line that I am not going to deal with that anymore, and I move those people over into my toxic bin. Some of the best people I've ever liked are in there. A couple of my children and a family member, they're in that toxic bin. Just the way it is. And by the way, if you're shocked, well, have a look in your own backyard. You know what I'm talking about. Okay? You know what I'm talking about. It's harsh, but sometimes that means we've got to do that to close the door. You can't take everything with you when you're moving forward. Sometimes you got to break down, and that gut-wrenching thing that you can't imagine ever of doing, you have to do. Like letting go of your season tickets for the Calgary Stampeders. Just so you can move to Red Deer for 8 years and do this. Do you know how hard that was for me to do? I've been going to the game since 1957. You're welcome. I've been going back again for 23 more years since I got back there now, so, you know, but it's just like when you get attached to something, it's really hard to give it up. And you're thinking it's all this giving up bad stuff, right? No, it's hard giving up good stuff. Like the cheesecake. It's good, but sometimes we got to give it up. You know what I mean? Okay? So it's always easy. And then one of the ways to do that also is make sure you don't get attachments to outcomes with people. No attachment to outcomes. Because you can have an expectation, but whenever you get attached to an outcome, You're going to get really disappointed. Anybody ever expect somebody to do something they didn't? You got bummed out? Like when you're practicing giving and you found out that they just threw it in the garbage? And how could they? Well, that doesn't really matter. It just shows you that you didn't really give because you had an attachment to the outcome. You think they should appreciate it or give thanks or at least keep it. Doesn't matter what they do with it. If you give it, that's their business. I'm given because I'm a giver, not because I have an expectation of what they should do or how they should receive it. That's a really good point, because if you do, you're not giving. Giving is unattached. It doesn't matter what. Try it on for size. Same as receiving. Oh, I don't like to take it because then I owe them one. Ooh. Anybody ever do that? That's a bad one. And then a lot of times people try to avoid, and they always do it by saying, oh, I'm just kind of going with the flow right now and not doing much. Just, anybody ever say going with the flow? And I always bring it back, well, you gotta really be careful with going with the flow. You gotta know which flow you're in, because both the river and the sewer flow. Okay? So I'm going with the flow, but I want to make sure I know which flow I'm in. Okay? It's all up here with your attitude. Okay. Well, that's the door opening. That's the door closing. Now let's talk about the door opening. Anybody ever go out and turn the water on the hose and nothing comes out the other end? Yeah, because there's an obstruction. You ever go out and do all the good work and nothing comes out the other end? Because there's an obstruction. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to release our obstructions. And this was a quote that I formulated because I need it more than anybody. And the problem with opening a door and going into new experience is we want to be in control of how it's going to go, how it's going to be, what it's going to look like. Is anybody like that, or is it just me? Biggest thing that we could do is try to control something that in reality we don't even know what we're trying to control, because we don't know all that's going to happen. So Doug says, the problem occurs when we try and control everything rather than controlling what we can and need to do and trusting that the Spirit or God does the rest that it needs to do. The ultimate way, now listen carefully here. Doug, are you listening? Okay, we got this tuned in. The ultimate way to be in total control of dealing with life's experiences is to let go of the need to control altogether. So there I am after my harrowing trip back from Italy on my major medical disaster, getting back into Calgary, and I'm laying in the hospital, and there's the surgeon and the nurses and the cleaners and this person and that, and they're coming around and doing everything, and I'm just laying there doing nothing. I'm not in control of a damn thing. Me, not in control of anything. And then I had two practitioners come to do treatment for me, and they both mentioned the same thing about me having a chance to let go of control. And I wasn't happy. I wanted a healing. I didn't want to hear that. Does anybody want to hear that when you're laying there going through major surgery? You don't want to hear that. And they were collaborating. They must have been, but they weren't. So, you got to find a way of dealing with a situation like that, because I need to be in control of something. Well, I have to be in control of myself. So how did I go about doing it? Well, I got my laptop, and I made a schedule, and I observed every time the different people would come, and approximately what time, and I did up their schedule. And then I went and did my walking around and got back just in time just to see if I could do that. Does that sound like a need to control? Well, I could control that, and that was a lot of good fun. I know most people wouldn't do that, but I did. But you got to let go of control. John Morton, who is the Lord Chancellor of England and the Archbishop of Canterbury, said, manifesting the blessings is not really anything that is complicated or even difficult. How do you like that first statement? Clear out what is not serving you no longer, actively being utilized. Give and share joyously, receive graciously, make amends, adorn yourself first with the inner beauty so that the outer beauty may benefit from your best intentions. Contribute more than you take, make each place you find better than you found it, and be an abundant source of good tidings to and from God. In short, let go and let God. So a little bit about the door opening and the door closing in the experience of change. Now we're going to talk about hell in the hallways. That's that part in the middle. And so one of my favorite quotes here that I developed is, you can't have a breakthrough until you have a breakdown. No, I don't like that. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. You have to break down the old before you can have a breakthrough into the new. Now, here's where a lot of the philosophy and religion gets a little bit mixed up because they don't talk about it in detail, but they do talk about the process. For example, there's Jesus getting crucified, and there's the resurrection. Everybody know about that? Everybody hear about that, eh? But nobody talks about the 3 days in the tomb. What the hell happened in the tomb? Do you ever think about that? There was a transfiguration, a transformation that happened where the physical body deteriorated and was translated into an ethereal body, which was a higher vibration. And that was the manifestation of Jesus after. Well, if you can't get into that, that's fine too. Let me bring it back down to something you can. Anybody seen a caterpillar before? It goes along. Do you think that caterpillar knows what's coming? No. That caterpillar spins that cocoon, and then out of the cocoon comes this beautiful butterfly. Right? So what happens in the cocoon? Caterpillar, butterfly. We called it metamorphosis. It's called change. Chemicalization, it's called in different degrees of metaphysics and quantum physics. Okay? There's a process that happens that breaks down the old, and out of that begins to formulate the new. Now, we don't see what's going on in there, but it happens. Now, take it back even to a simple thing. Planting a seed. Everybody planted and grown a seed to grow something? Anybody not done that? Okay, good, we're all on the same page. So you do that, you nurture the soil, and then you wait for it to grow, you nurture it, and you harvest it, right? Anybody, right? So what happens under the ground? Does anybody know what happens in the ground? Do you know what happens in that process transforming that seed into that beautiful plant? There's a process there, and it isn't really pretty if you think about it. And how many people go out there and dig up the ground just to see if it's growing? Anybody ever do that? Why don't you do it? That's the question I have. Why does a person not go out and dig up the soil to see if it's growing? Well, because we know it's growing. Because that's what the soil does. That's what the cocoon does. That's what the tomb does. That's what happens within us when we go through change. Now, every now and again, that change is extremely intense. In fact, Dr. Holmes said, nature will not let us stay in any one place too long. She will let us stay just long enough to gather the necessary experience for the unfoldment and the advancement of the soul. This is a wise provision, for should we stay too long here, will we get too set, too rigid, too inflexible? Nature demands the change in order that we may advance. When the change comes, we should welcome it with a smile on our lips and a song in our heart. So, all of that's interesting. But then there's a deeper level of understanding about the process that happens, which I've gone through many times before, but have never been given the full understanding of it until the last few months when I went through the experience again, and I was given how to explain it. Has anybody ever heard of the dark night of the soul? That's a real buzzword today. Everybody's going through this major changes. I'm going to spare you, not tell you my dark nights, because you already know a lot of them, and it's just too much and too terrible. But a lot of people are mistaken about where this idea comes from. It comes from a Catholic monk in the 5th century that wrote a poem called that. And so I've been working with this, and whenever we go through change, there's really at the depth, at that hell inside in the hallway, there are two types of change that formulate what we call the dark night of the soul. One's called the night of the senses, that's the physical part, and another one's called the night of the spirit. This happens quite often. This happens very seldom, but it does happen, and every now and again they happen both together, and that's when you really get it. Okay? And this is a whole different topic. So anybody interested in hearing more on that dark night of the soul? Come next month, that's the topic. Dark night of the soul on the threshold of a dream. That's what I'll be talking about. It's really interesting because what the goal here to do in this process is to clear out any obstructions. That means the willingness to let go of an old idea, in particular about self, and the willingness to embrace the new idea. Now, doing something new and being uncomfortable, it's the easiest thing in the world to do, to get. There's only the way to do it. I can tell you how you get it done. 2 words, 2 letters in each word. There's only one way. It's called do it. You're never going to get by any of this stuff until you just do it. And of course, big thing is, well, what if I fail? Does anybody, what if I fail? Well, so what? Somebody said to me, Doug, you've been doing this with wisdom. You're a master. I said, do you know what the difference between a master and a beginner is? A master's failed way more times than a beginner's even tried. Failure is a part of success. Very few people ever succeed without failing along the way. Just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure. Be real clear. You're not a failure just because it fails. And it's a learning experience, and it's next. That's what the life is all about. It's all about moving forward. And I'll leave you with this. And it's my favorite thing from the Science of Mind textbook, Dr. Ernest Holmes, bottom of page 282, top of page 283. And it frustrates me to no end because every time I'm not clear or I'm upset or I get down on myself or things aren't working, I go to this and read it, then I get upset because it brings me back online. Stay with the one and never deviate it. Never leave it for a moment. Nothing else can equal this attitude. To desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we don't know the truth. When things look the worst, that is the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to truth, to the operation of truth. When things look the worst is the best time to work, the most satisfying time. The person who can throw himself with complete abandon into that limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all apparent moorings, is the one who will always receive the greatest rewards. It isn't easy, but it can be done, and there's only one place that it can be done. That's within each and every one of us. No one can do it for you. Do you know how much money I could make if I could just put up a shingle, say, come to me, I could get rid of it for you, easy. How many would pay $100 to come and see me if I told you that I could do it in 5 minutes? Well, but there would be some. Okay? It's all there, folks. It's all within. You have the power and the presence. The Spirit's there for you to assist you. All we got to do is just assist ourselves by being clear when we look at the mirror that you've got a loving expression of the Most High looking back at you. And that person there is there for you at all times and in all situations. So I accept my good for myself and for you. I give thanks. You know it is so, and so it is. So it is. Yeah.